I mean, can we just take a second and look at what we see next to me? So this is the chart of every single player the Rams drafted in this draft class. The way the chart works, you have, what the player they drafted, then what position they play, where they were drafted, and where they ranked on the consensus big board. And, people want to ask, people wonder, how are the Rams able to be effective when they trade away all of their first-round picks? This is how. 14 selections in this draft class. They always make sure they get a ton of picks. They always usually have actually more than the average team has in terms of draft picks. The average team gets or the average team gets 8 draft picks actually. You're guaranteed 7, and then of course the comp picks make for an extra 1. They have double what you're guaranteed with 14 draft picks, and this is how they're able to remain competitive, getting guys later in rounds and then trading those first round picks for stars right away. It's an effective strategy, and we'll talk about why it works, and let's just get into it. Starting off with a pick that I didn't love, Steve Avila is someone who, I thought this was a bit of a reach. He was 53rd on the consensus big board. Osiris Torrance was still available. I probably would have gone there. Seems like he's a good pass blocker and had a better 2021 campaign than 2022. Played over 1,000 snaps, though, last year, interestingly enough. So I can see why some people like him. He played for TCU, has the championship experience of at least playing in a game. Didn't go so well. But still, there's things to like about him, but it felt a bit early for me personally. But there's a lot of picks I do like. Byron Young, I have to say, to be honest though, Byron Young, not one of those either. Again, me, when it comes to edge rushers, I do value analytics more than athleticism. Although, at pick 77, I'm more willing to take a chance on a guy who's an athlete, and that's what Young is. He ran a 4.4, he's 6'2", 250, so great athlete. That's why they drafted him. Didn't have the production, but I'm actually not too mad at this one. Again, a reach by 11 spots, I think that's fine. It's maybe not the direction I typically go, but I think that here at 77, sure, take a swing on an athlete who, if you can, get it together, you'll feel better. Moving on to Kobe Turner, he's edge on the screen. He's really an interior defensive lineman. I believe he's listed as a defensive end, but really he's an inside player. 290 is what he's listed at, and really good production from his perspective. He's kind of the opposite of Byron Young in the sense that Young, this great athlete who hasn't gotten the production together, Turner has the production, but is he a good enough athlete to make it work at the NFL level? He's a bit smaller, and not like in a Kalijah Cansey way where he's smaller and that's how he wins. He's just a bit smaller, and so that's the concern, and that's why he was 146 on the consensus big board rankings. That is a reach, and I'm not going to deny that. Getting a guy who is, should have been picked 50 spots later is usually not smart decision making, but, I do like the player, so we'll see how well that works out. Then we have maybe the biggest name that they drafted, Stetson Bennett, the 2-time national champion for Georgia, who, I do think he was really good last year. I think that he proved that he was an NFL player last year. I think too many people are focusing on previous years and not focusing on what he did last year. To me, I don't see him as a starter. I mean, the guy is 25, so that's part of why, it took him a long time to really get it going in college, and I don't know how much value I see in someone like him as a starter, but to me, he feels like the ultimate high floor, low ceiling type of player. I feel very confident he's a day one good backup who's never going to amount to much as a starter in the NFL. That's what I expect to have happen. I could be wrong. I think the best case scenario for him would be in a Brock Purdy type situation. And I'll actually take back what I said about he'll never amount to much as a starter. He could amount to some stuff as a starter if it's a Brock Purdy situation where everything is perfect, which the Rams are trying to build. So, again, a bit of a reach according to the consensus big board, but as I always say, there are no reaches when it comes to quarterbacks. There are no rules when it comes to quarterbacks. If you like a quarterback, go ahead and get him. Next up on the list, another defensive lineman here, Nick Hampton, the edge rusher, and he is an edge rusher, not an interior defensive lineman. Nick Hampton, someone who, I think could do some interesting things. He's kind of one of those, if, Byron Young is the great athlete and Kobe Turner is the guy with production, Hampton's kind of in the middle. Maybe not a spectacular athlete, but does run a 4.5, a bit of a smaller edge rusher, 236, and the Rams are not afraid to draft guys who are outliers in terms of size. We saw it with Tutu Atwell, right? If there's some players that people will say, we're just not drafting that guy because of their height and weight. The Rams are not one of those teams. They are not afraid to do it. And I think he could be potentially a good rotational pass rusher for them on the outside. So definitely interested in seeing what he can do from here on out. Warren McClendon, another guy who, okay, again, you look at the consensus big board, they actually got a bit of a steal here, projected to go 166, got him at 174, massive steal, right? Okay, not necessarily massive, but still, you like to get guys who are on the right side of the consensus big board if you can. Offensive lineman doesn't have a ton of great production, but is a good pass blocker. And so again, getting guys who can be good pass blockers, maybe he could come in, and if he's thrust into a position where he has to play, could maybe at least do some things well and at least protect Matt Stafford well, which is definitely an important job. Davis Allen, next up on this list, the tight end Davis Allen, another guy without incredible production and also not really incredible physical traits. I mean, ran a 4.84 at 245 pounds. That's incredible for a person, and like that will get you drafted in the NFL, but that's not great for these NFL talents. But again, we're talking about a guy who was a 5th round picked 157. You're not expecting necessarily greatness from him, not a ton of production either. So maybe they see something in him. Maybe they feel like they can get more out of him potentially. I don't know. Or maybe they just feel like he could be a depth guy. I could see that. Then we have Puka Nakau, it might be how you say his name, out of BYU, who, was legitimately really good last year. I mean, he had a lot of production last year, maybe not in terms of yards, but just in terms of down-to-down playing, and still had, over 600 yards and 5 touchdowns as well. So, anytime you get to sort of this point and you're getting skill position guys, I wonder if he is someone who could be a special teamer as well. A lot of times these guys, you want them to do multiple different things, but he is someone who, bit of a bigger receiver too at 6'2", and has the production at maybe a weaker level, worth taking a chance on with pick 177. We then have Tre'Davious Hodges-Tomlinson, a corner who a lot of people thought could go a lot higher, and I actually really like this pick by the Rams because the knock on him is he's kind of had not great seasons in back-to-back years, which is concerning, and I'm not going to say it's not concerning. Listen, there's a reason why he's drafted pick 182, but 2020, he had a very good year, and I would say he was still solid last year. And so I think the hope is that, corners, a notoriously fluky position, maybe he can return to that 2020 form, and if not, again, pick 182, you at least probably have a special teamer. We're talking about 6-rounders here. It's not the worst time in the world to get someone who can, do that. So we then have O'Shawn Mathis, a guy who I'm assuming is just depth. I don't really see anything too notable here. Kind of, the athleticism and the production kind of just matches what you would expect from a 6th-round pick. But hey, depth is still important. You can't just swing for the fences every single one of your 14 picks. You then have Zach Evans, a running back. The Rams do this a good amount, and I think it's smart. Seems like every a time in the 6th or 7th round, they just pick up a running back. It's just, I think, smart. This is when you should be getting running backs. Yes, it's great when you get a Todd Gurley early on, but the chances are those guys aren't going to be Todd Gurley, and the chances are just gets a guy later on, they can come through and still be effective. So I like the idea of just getting a running back here. We then have Ethan Evans, a punter who it's just never a smart idea to draft a punter. It just isn't. The value isn't there. 7th rounder though, okay, fine. I'm not gonna get too mad about it. If you like a punter, actually, I'll take that back. I think you could probably justify spending a 7th rounder on a punter, maybe even a 6th rounder. So it's still not something I would rush to do, but I think you could justify it. And then you have Jason Taylor, safety Jason Taylor, who again, consensus big board. This is right around where he was supposed to be drafted. One thing that I like about what they did was, with the exception of Mr. Irrelevant, which we'll get to in just a second, that's why he's in bold, the last pick of the draft, they did a good job of not really reaching at these points. A lot of people will reach once we get to the 7th round, just take a kind of a random flyer on a guy. It feels like the Rams are still drafting best player available at times, even in round 7, which is smart to do. Then Deshaun Johnson, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce that name. I apologize, Johnson. But last player picked in the draft, but actually has some pretty solid intangibles, pretty solid analytics. So I'm interested in that, and maybe he could be, hey, we just saw last year Brock Purdy do really good as Mr. Irrelevant. Maybe it's starting to become a trend. There has been a Mr. Irrelevant win a Super Bowl, Ryan Suckup with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Brock Purdy made a conference championship game. Maybe it's a sign of good things to come for Johnson. But yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.